Welcome everybody to another shocking episode of Lockdown 23 in 1. That's right, today is going to be a little bit of a story time. All you hikers and outdoor survivalists, listen up. Even when you think you're all alone in the middle of nowhere, anything or anyone could still come your way. If you don't believe me, then listen to the stories of these individuals and how they died while hiking the Appalachian Trail. Very popular trail. I believe it runs from like Maine to Kentucky, something like that. Goes through like 9 different states, a trail at the very top of the mountains. I hiked it before. I'd say about a good 20 paces. They had this little rest area for cars at the top of the mountain, and little did I know that the Appalachian Trail was connected to the rest area. So you could literally walk on it a little bit, and it had a little sign breaking down exactly what everything was in the history. Pretty cool, man, pretty cool. But I will say this, just walking a good 20-30 feet of that trail, you realize you better have all the food and water you need. You run out up there, man, you are in trouble. Not to mention, I've seen a few videos of people hiking it, man. It's just kind of eerie, you know, by yourself up there on the top of a mountain. And that's what makes these stories even creepier, if you're to ask me, because, you know, these hikers and stuff like that, they were murdered probably all alone. No matter how much they screamed, nobody heard it. They're at the top of the mountain, probably not expecting anything like this to happen. But it don't matter where you're at, you got to be ready and prepared for anything. So let's jump into the list of these Appalachian murders from 1974 to present day. But first, if you enjoy this type of content, all things lockup and crime related, then this is where you want to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Now keep in mind, the list begins in 1974, so there's not going to be really too much coverage on a lot of these stories, besides a little bit of a breakdown. You're going to have to paint the picture yourself, but there are a couple that I found some videos to go with it, man, and it blew my mind. Also, don't forget, this trail is huge and goes through multiple states. The chances of stuff like this happening to you is very rare. I'd go hike the trail tomorrow and not worry about nothing, but at the same time, it will help you look at things from a different perspective. The article begins, how safe is the Appalachian Trail really? A day spent in nature can be an invigorating one, but it's no secret that the wild comes with its fair share of dangers. From unpredictable weather to animal encounters, to dehydration to infections. There's a slew of threats hikers should always keep at least one eye out for. But what about the dangers that stretch beyond Mother Nature? What about human nature? In this post, we're taking a deeper look into such dark encounters. But the first one begins in 2019 with Ronald Sanchez Jr. The murderer was James Louis Jordan. Location, Virginia. 43-year-old Ronald Sanchez spent 16 years in the Army and served 3 tours in Iraq. Oh my goodness, can you believe doing all that just to get killed in your own country while hiking? Blows my mind. But after returning to the States, he embraced his love for nature and took on the Appalachian Trail. He began his trek early in the season, figuring he'd average a slower pace than most due to a knee and shoulder injury. By May 10th, he made it to southern Virginia, where he camped alongside 3 other hikers. On the morning of May 11th, the group encountered a 30-year-old James Louis Jordan, nicknamed Sovereign. But he was from Yarmouth, Mass., and they were camped in Wythe County, Virginia. Hopefully I'm pronouncing these names right. Jordan was later reported to have been acting unstable, alarming fellow hikers on the trail. Jordan threatened to burn Sanchez and the others' tents. When they tried to leave, he attacked them, killing Sanchez and wounding another. Jordan is currently undergoing a psych evaluation and awaiting trial. Now check this out. He stabbed Sanchez, killing him, but he also chased down a girl that ran into the woods, ended up stabbing her. She plays dead. Someone else happens to cross her path and help her hike 6 miles to safety after being stabbed. She survives. Can you believe that? Very, very lucky. My condolences go out to Ronald Sanchez Jr.'s family. Very sad story, man. But moving along, 2011, Scott Lilly. And this case, believe it or not, is still unsolved. Spooky, huh? It happened in Cow Camp Gap Shelter, Virginia. On August 12, 2011, a group of weekend hikers came across the body of Scott Lilly near the Cow Camp Gap Shelter on the Appalachian Trail. Lilly was a 30-year-old SOBO hiker. I don't know exactly what SOBO means. It might be short for something, and I probably do. It just ain't coming to my mind right now. Either way, He was a 30-year-old hiker who began his journey in Maryland and was planning to end at Springer Mountain. He was last seen and heard from on July 1st after climbing the Priest in Nelson County. Lily's cause of death was labeled a homicide caused by asphyxia by suffocation. His belongings were missing, although the FBI did not say. They believed robbery was the motive. Lily's death remains a mystery till this day. But in 2008, Meredith Emerson was murdered by Gary Mitchell Hilton on Blood Mountain, Georgia. God, that is creepy, huh? Motive was mentally unstable sociopath. Never in a million years do you think you walk into someone like that on the Appalachian Trail. Gary Hilton, a 61-year-old drifter, befriended and hiked for some time with a 24-year-old Meredith Emerson and her dog. Emerson was a fast hiker, so Hilton soon fell behind and she continued her ascent alone. On her way back down the mountain, she crossed paths with Hilton again, who this time attacked her. Armed with a knife and baton, he threatened her and tried to take her money. Emerson, who was trained in 2 different martial arts, fought back. She wouldn't stop fighting, Hilton told investigators after the fact. Hilton eventually kidnapped Emerson and held her captive for 3 days before killing her with a handle from a car jack. Imagine that, to be kidnapped for 3 days, hoping, praying for something to happen, not knowing that your end is right around the corner by a handle of a car jack. Terrifying, man. Jeez. Not to mention, where did he take her? From the Appalachian Trail to hold her for 3 days. Hilton, a believed sociopath, said he targeted Emerson because she was a woman. He was sentenced to life in prison, later being charged with 3 additional murders. Very, very sad story. Moving on to 2001, Louise Chapo. The murder is still unsolved. It happened in Lost Pond Trail, New Hampshire. At 52, Louise drove from Quebec to Peakham's Grant, where she stayed at the lodge of the Appalachian Mountain Club Visitors Center for the weekend. In search of a short-day hike, Louise set out to hike the Lost Pond Trail, which the trailhead was just across the street. Louise was never heard from again, and on the following Monday, her family and friends filed a missing persons report with local police. Her body was found on Thanksgiving Day with multiple stab wounds. The motive for her murder is unknown, and her killer is still at large. 1996, Julianne Williams and Lolly Winens, their murders still unsolved as well. Though not technically at the Appalachian Trail, this double murder occurred just off of it at the Shenandoah National Park. Williams, 24, and Winens, 26, were found dead on June 1st, 1996 at a campsite on Bridle Trail, just a quarter-mile away from a popular spot with bars, restaurants, and cabins. Thomas Williams, Julie's father, was the one to report the girls missing when the daughter didn't return the day she said she would. Their murderer has never been found, and the FBI is still investigating the case. Next up, September 1990. Joffrey Hood, 26, and Molly Laro, 25, were a young thru-hiking couple. They were shot and stabbed by Paul David Cruz, a wanted killer on the run from the Florida police. 8 days following the murder, West Virginia police arrested Cruz after hikers noticed and awkwardly carrying an ill-fitting, overstuffed backpack because it was stuffed with the murder weapons and the young couple's belongings. Unreal, man. Cruz is a manic depressive and frequent drug user, was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, and is currently serving 2 life sentences without the chance of parole. 1998, Rebecca White, murderer Stephen Roy Carr. Happened in McHugh State Forest, Pennsylvania. I know I didn't pronounce that right. But Stephen Roy Carr shot Rebecca White and her partner, Claudia Brenner, in May 1988. White first ran into Carr at a public restroom near their camp, where he asked for a cigarette. The 2 women encountered Carr again later that day while they stopped to look at their map. That night, after they set up camp, Carr spied on the couple for some time before firing 8 rounds at the women, killing White and wounding Brenner. 10 days following the attack, Carr was arrested and sentenced to life without parole. In 1981, Robert Mountford Jr. and Laura Susan Ramsey was murdered by Randall Lee Smith at Wapita Shelter, Virginia. Murder on the Appalachian Trail, written in 1984 by Jess Carr, is based on the true events of the deaths of Robert Mountford and Laura Ramsey. The 2 were 27-year-old social workers hiking the Appalachian Trail to raise money for troubled adolescents in Maine. Wow. It's crazy, man. It seems like a lot of really bad situations happen to people that are doing really good things. Just makes no sense sometimes, but they were murdered by Randall Lee Smith while staying at the Wapita Shelter. Their bodies were found 4 days later with knife and gunshot wounds, buried under dirt and brush in their sleeping bags. Smith was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder and served 15 years of a 30-year sentence before being released for good behavior. On a mandatory parole, later he attempted murder again in the same location. Unbelievable, man. I mean, yeah, it came from 1981, but it doesn't matter what's going on in the courtroom over there. That's a crazy turn of events. Look, I'm reading these stories for the first time with y'all, so my reactions are authentic. Moving on though, 1975, Janice Bowie was murdered by Paul Bigley at Vandeventer Shelter in Tennessee. The motive was he was mentally unstable. Janice was sitting at a campfire at the Vandeventer Shelter when she was murdered with a hatchet by a former mental patient named Paul Bigley, who supposedly coveted her backpack. Killed her with a hatchet because he supposedly wanted her book bag, man. Unreal. Bigley was tried and convicted of murder and spent the rest of his life in prison. The Vandeventer Shelter is sometimes believed to be haunted by Janice's ghost. 1974, Joel Pson was murdered by Ralph Howard Fox at the Low Gap Shelter in Georgia. This is the first recorded murder on the Appalachian Trail. Joel Pson was hiking with a woman named Margaret McFadden when they stopped to spend the night at Low Gap Shelter. Here they ran into Fox, a young man who was also spending the night. The following morning, Fox shot Pson, stole his gear, and kidnapped McFadden, who was 18 years old at the time. After a few days, Fox released McFadden, who reported the incident to police. Fox pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. But that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed and at least got a little something from this. Like, be ready for anything, anywhere. Trust nobody, especially, man, hiking in the middle of nowhere. Keep your distance. I know a lot of hikers that like to be friendly, man, and start, befriending each other. Hiking a bit together, man. Not me. I mean, if you're with a group of people and you're hiking, yeah, sure, you can go ahead, tag along with a couple randoms. Power in numbers. But if you're out there solo surfing on them Appalachian trails, man, you need to be weary of everyone you cross. But once again, before we close out, my condolences go out to all the families that we spoke about in these stories. I know some of them are pretty old, but I'm sure some of their family members, it's still fresh to them. Until the next time, y'all be easy, be safe, and more importantly than anything, stay free and alert at all times.